Well, I've got two grandsons who are 5 and 3, and I'm also a scientist. And I've been aware of the impending climate chaos for some time, and I've been frustrated by the fact that people know about it, politicians know about it, and they pay lip service to it, but they're not really doing much about it. And it's quite frustrating.
Do you think there's any moral justification for burning down that Amazon? Anything that can justify it?
No.
So if people were getting pleasure somehow from making money, perhaps that would...
Absolutely not. No, I don't believe. I find the wealth of some people absolutely abhorrent.
The suffering of, say, the farmed animals like the chickens and cows. Do you care equally about their suffering as, say, you would about wild animal suffering that we see as a result of climate change?
I mean, it's complicated. Obviously, if you go totally vegan, then farm animals will become extinct. I mean, I grew up on a farm. We used to keep chickens, and they used to be free range, and we used to keep them. My parents used to keep them. They used to run around wild, you know, and they weren't killed until they'd well stopped laying, which could be 4 years.
A little bit. Sorry, guys.
So they could be 4 years old, you know, before they were killed. And,
Walking into the...
and because of that, they tasted extremely good.
Would you say that when we become aware of large amounts of needless suffering and death, does there become a moral obligation to act?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think that. I think, I'm aware that people are suffering already, but I'm more worried about, I have to say, being much more selfish, if you like. I'm worried about my family, my offspring.
Yes. Yeah. Do you think there's any moral justification for, say, killing an animal in the UK for meat or dairy or eggs?
Moral justification. Not ideally, no. Not ideally.
And if I was to say to you, well, I'm getting pleasure from eating the cheese or the meat, would that matter?
That's a problem for me, actually, because I can't go vegan because I like cheese too much.
If I had to breed a dog that I was breeding for dog fighting, and you said you should stop the dog fighting, and if I was to say to you, but this breed of dog wouldn't exist if I wasn't breeding them into existence every few days, would that justify the dog fighting?
No.
So does breeding animals into existence for food justify the exploitation and death of using them,
That's a kind of complicated moral.
So just the idea that
the problem is we have evolved as carnivores, and
do you think that kind of a logical extension of caring about an issue like this, the suffering and death, could be veganism? And that's to try and reduce the suffering of farmed animals as well.
Well, yes. I mean, one of the things that I reminded myself the other day is, I was saying this to my family, if you drink a pint of milk, and you're getting that from cows. Now, cows need a lot of grass.
Yes.
You have to clear a lot of fields. You have to therefore destroy woodland, which is what would be the natural habitat. And along with that comes a lot of animals who lose their habitats and their lives. But if you drink oat milk, it's 100 times less land needed. So it's hugely beneficial to the planet to become a vegan.
Yes.
Yes.
And do you...
I'm not a vegan, but I think I might just have to become one.
What's more important to you, an animal's life or taste?
Well, I suppose, because I'm still eating it, the taste, which has brought me down to a very low, humble position, hasn't it?
But I guess perhaps we don't always feel like we're making that conscious choice. If I say to you, does pleasure justify exploiting or hurting an animal? What would you say?
No, it doesn't really, when you're looking at the morals of it.
If we can be healthy on a vegan diet, how would we morally justify causing that unnecessary suffering and death? In the same way that these big companies are causing unnecessary suffering and death. How do we justify that behaviour?
How do we cause it? Justify it? I don't know.
So if I was to say to you, I love the way these chickens taste, would that justify it?
I don't know. This is complicated.
I appreciate I'm putting you on the spot.
No, it's fine because say.
I mean, do you think that sensory pleasure can justify exploiting someone, an animal, or killing an animal, taking their life away? Can sensory pleasure justify that act?
Well, if you put it in an extreme where you can't really, can you? I mean,
When you put it like that, it seems like you can't, right?
but I probably still will have an organic goose at Christmas.
We come from a history of, first of all, hunting animals and then enclosing them and growing them, developing them.
Do you think
to our benefit.
that because we did something in the past, does that make it ethical in today's world?
The reason I don't think it's ethical is not so much because I'm worried about, this is my view,
Yeah.
Killing an animal as so much as I am about the fact that it's destroying many animals in the process. You know, you're taking away land
Yeah.
from a natural habitat. And that's a problem in itself because in that habitat there are going to be insects, there are going to be birds, there are going to be microbes, there are going to be yet to discover antibiotics.
The only problem I really have is cheese.
Yeah.
I could.
Do you know much about the industry, like the dairy industry, how milk is produced?
I do.
So you know about the separation of mother and baby?
Yes, I do. And the fact that they're kept permanently sort of in a state of lactation.
Right, yes. And how would you describe that process morally?
Abhorrent.
Yeah.
Abhorrent. And now I think I'm not going to be able to go and eat my cheese and pickle sandwich.
Look, there's so many other more extreme ethical issues about, I think.
There are many other issues, but I could also say the same thing about the environmentalism movement. I could say this is an issue, but there's also people starving to death. There's lots of other issues, women being abused. So the fact that there's other issues doesn't mean that this issue doesn't demand attention as well, right?
No, I'm going to join.
No worries. Thank you for talking to me anyway. I appreciate it. Thank you. Is there any moral justification for me
No, there's no
slitting
moral,
that animal's
There's
throat?
no moral justification. No.
So would you go as far to say that?
It's a completely selfish act.
I appreciate the honesty. Would you go as far to say that it's a moral obligation to be vegan, in the same way you say it's a moral obligation to be non-racist?
Yes, I see what you mean. You're going to make me a vegan now. I'm going to go home and never eat another piece of chicken. Vegans, of course, won't eat eggs. They won't have cheese.
Yes.
All that sort of stuff. Well, I'm not there yet in terms of I'm a bit selfish, but
Do you know about?
if the food can be made to be nice and tasty, which I have to say, a lot of Middle Eastern food I've been eating in the last few years has made me change my diet very much.
Let's say hypothetically the vegan food tasted like shit.
He wants to come back to the ethical. Yeah.
Let's say hypothetically it tasted horrible. Would sensory pleasure justify the violence to the animals?
Well, that's a bit like saying, should we never go out and get a bit merry or drink beer?
But there's not necessarily a victim to me
because
getting
you might
a bit
be
merry.
annoying the neighbours, sort of thing.
It's not necessarily a victim to me getting merry, but there's always a victim if I have to kill an animal.
Yeah, I'm not sure we can go around being quite as pure and as perfect as that.
Would it be fair to say that your morals are completely against cheese or the process of getting cheese?
Yes.
And could I suggest?
My sensations are with the cheese.
Yes, of course. Could I suggest that when you buy the cheese, you're contradicting your own morals?
Yes, I am. Yes.
So would it be fair?
I wouldn't be the only one.
No,
I
of
mean,
course.
that is a problem.
I'd say most people in the world, I don't think anyone could look at that process and say it's okay. And it's the same with eggs. They grind up chickens while they're fully conscious. There's so much suffering in these industries that good people pay for because they're not aware or not making the connection between what they're seeing on the plate.
And where should I find out? I mean, I don't eat eggs, but then I would eat eggs in a cake or something.
It's ecological rights rather than animal rights. I think
I've got a dog in front of you now, and I pull a knife out. Are you going to try and stop me from slitting that dog's throat? Would you rather I didn't?
Well, I think just for gratuitous.
Just for
but if it was a religious
taste pleasure.
If it was a religious sacrifice that you made, and it was something that your community had believed in for a long, long time, and it was part of what you did, I wouldn't be that worried. No.
Would you
but
accept
if
it?
It was a dog in the middle of Trafalgar Square, I think that would be a bit nasty.
Would you accept it in a human context? Would you accept me sacrificing a human?
No.
So what is the difference that justifies that difference in treatment?
I do think. I mean, do you ever kill a fly? We can go to
No.
the other extreme. Yeah,
don't
but some
know.
people would say the fly doesn't know it's going to be killed. It doesn't have a conscience. It's not particularly conscious. It's just it's alive. It's doing its thing to get enough food and to reproduce. But it's not going around with kind of
Do you think a cow
feeling
is
tortured or worried.
Sure, but I guess I could kill a human without them feeling tortured or worried. I could kill them in the back of the head. So I guess.
Oh, in some situations you might have to do that. Yes, I would agree.
What is? I know there's many differences. I'm not saying that like a chicken is
in a situation where your territory, your country's being invaded by.
self-defense. Sure.
Yeah.
But so I'm not trying to say that a chicken is of equal value to you, of course. But
I also don't think the chicken. I don't think the chicken really has a conscience and is not particularly worried about whether it's alive or dead, so on.
But I guess some humans don't either. I could find a baby that isn't aware of life or death, but we wouldn't accept me killing them for that
Well, it's about
reason.
potential there, isn't it? I suppose a baby.
What if a mentally disabled person who had no idea of this? Would that still be wrong to kill them?
No, because if the person's alive and got a brain, I tell you what.
But humans, animals are alive and have brains.
I personally, if I was, when I get older, I've said this to my family, if I become so disabled that I'm no longer enjoying life, and I ask them to do what I want to finish my life, I would be. That's self.
Yes,
Now,
but you would
for
be
them,
consenting.
yes, but for them, they would have to do it.
Yeah.
So they would have to take that step. Now, if my mother did ask me to do that, more or less, she was very much in the belief that, if you become a vegetable, then you should be put down, even though she's a human. So I think there are times when I would accept to do that.
Of course,
yeah.
but you wouldn't accept doing it if you don't consent. If someone didn't consent, I don't want to die, let me live, I'm healthy, I don't want to die. You wouldn't accept killing them.
No, of course not. No.
But we do to pigs, chickens, and cows.
Yeah.
So my question is, what is it about the cow or the pig? What trait do they possess that makes it okay, but it's different to human? To a human, it's wrong.
I think it's to do with the fact that they're very close to me, and I understand them and have a relationship because they're humans, and I know their fears and worries. I don't believe. Obviously, a dog gets worried and nervous. That's clear. Cows possibly. Chickens very much as a sort of instinct, I suspect. And I don't feel strongly that I should engage with those animals' emotions and their rights.
But can I eat organic eggs? I'm going to interview you now.
So, no, good question. So,
organic eggs are presumably all right.
Not at all. So the issue I just mentioned with the grinding up of baby chickens,
Yeah.
that happens at the breeder, because when they're breeding the chickens, they only need the hens, the females, because they're the ones that lay the eggs. Male chicks are useless in an egg industry. So before they even go to yes, free range, organic, because the male chicks are completely useless. They don't make money. They get thrown out as waste. And also, whether it's organic, free range, all of the animals in the egg industry or the dairy industry, they all end up in a slaughterhouse. So my next question for you is, do you think there's an ethical way to kill needlessly?
No.
You basically find it easier to relate to humans. They're more like me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I suppose what we're doing
brothers
there,
and sisters
yes,
in a way.
Yeah. But when we say they're more like me, it's appealing to a group. They're part of my species.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's any different to other kinds of arbitrary discrimination. He's not part of my race. I prefer my gender. I can relate to my gender more. So what I'm asking for is specifically the trait, a meaningful trait. You could say intelligence, whatever trait it is that makes it okay.
I think it's their. I'm not a psychologist, but and I don't know the words. But I think humans have. I use the word a conscience. They have they're able to understand themselves in a world. They can predict. They can see things coming.
Yeah.
But
do you think?
I don't think animals can.
Do you think some mentally disabled people can't?
Well, I think there's a whole issue around mentally disabled, which is a very, very difficult one to resolve.
I guess
I say if I was ever mentally disabled, I would ask my family to give me a pink pill.
You wouldn't be okay with breeding mentally disabled people for the purpose of eating them? No. Because we're looking for consistency.
No, that's a whole different
Because
thing.
we're looking for consistency. So we're saying it's okay to breed and kill them specifically because they can't predict the future, they have no comprehension of life and death. Well then, if that's what makes it moral, then surely if I take that trait and stick it in another creature, then it becomes moral to kill them as well. What would stop you from being vegan?
cheese.
If you, when you bought cheese, you saw a baby being separated from their mother, crying
No,
out.
Of course I wouldn't. Of course I wouldn't buy it. No. So I have to be more.
I guess the thing is that consequence still exists regardless of whether we see it. When we buy that product, we pay for that and we
Yeah.
support the industry. And I would
in
say
a similar way as everything has to have a carbon footprint, on it.
yes, yeah.
We're gonna have to go. Is
No
that
worries.
all right?
Yes, amazing. Can I give you a card?
Yes, of course you can.
I appreciate I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, you are putting me on the spot. It's all right. It's okay. That's where human beings are prone to a little bit of hypocrisy.
Of course, we all
Yeah.
are. I guess we just have to do our best.
Yeah.
Do you think there is any moral justification we can use for what we are doing to animals on British soil today? The mutilations of animals and sticking knives into their throats, putting them in gas chambers, all of that stuff.
I think if they're put down in a way which is they don't feel or don't anticipate.
But you wouldn't accept that in a human context. If I shot you in the back of the head now, would it be okay?
Well, not now because I've got a life ahead of me. But
So of the animals, I guess, at that point where their lives are taken.
yeah. I mean, it's it's one of these conundrums. You can't really morally justify killing animals, and we go on doing it. And am I morally perturbed by that? I don't appear to be. Why not? I think I've tried to explain as best I can.
Yeah. If you could live a life where you're either hurting humans, hurting animals, or hurting neither, which would you strive for?
Oh well, obviously hurting neither.
Do you think being vegan would be closer to that goal?
Yes, I told you that.
Amazing. Well, I'll leave you a card if you want one.